Hey folks, this is Matt Jakeles from Victory First. You're listening to the Practical Tactical Podcast.
Hey folks, welcome to another edition of the Practical Tactical Podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to the practical application of tactical principles and teachings for the everyday common person. I'm your host, Casey, and today we've got Justin with us. Justin, how are you, my friend?
Good evening, sir. I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be chatting with you again. It seems like it's been forever, officially and non-officially.
It has been a little while, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. We've both been rather busy. For instance, this week, I put every day I worked this week was a minimum of 16 hours. So that's just the picture of today. This week it is.
That'll be a nice check anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have no shortage of work here either, as per normal. However, I am going to work much harder to ensure that we get these things out every week, because I know that our loyal and dedicated fan base want to hear from us every single week, and I do apologize for having been remiss on that lately.
Yes, and they've been stuck with me beating up on an LCP.
which was really nice, by the way.
Yeah, I think I took it a little bit to it kind of, how I say it, it kind of escalated quicker than I intended, going to the wet and sandy part too soon. But I did learn a lot and was forced to completely take apart the gun, which I learned a lot about and some things to do and not to do. So, but it's in good shape now. It's back running just fine. And it's basically sitting in my drawer where it spends most of its time because I don't carry it that much. But I digress. It held up better than I thought. So,
well, you know, I'm trying to work on that, by the way. I was informed by a loyal listener that they didn't appreciate that I say that so much, so I'm working very hard to not do that. But the show was well done, and I think it was interesting that you had the issues you did, although I wasn't all that surprised given the nature of that gun. But I think you did a good job fixing or diagnosing and then fixing and, in fact, upgrading the gun. So, well done to you.
Yeah, and I was impressed that I was able to make it work. It wasn't ideal.
So was I.
But it didn't completely stop either. I mean, even in that awesome situation, I could literally smack the back of the slide, get it into battery, and get a shot off, smack it again. And with a little bit of washing and shaking, I was able to get it working again, at least functioning. It didn't completely stop working. So, and I'm telling you, most guns are not going to hold up or like that kind of treatment very well. Even our famed Glocks and M&Ps and all that. I mean, they'll hold up. They'll fare quite a bit better, but they're going to have malfunctions. They're going to have issues, and so. But it was a learning experience, and I'll just leave it at that. You know, you don't have to do it to your gun. Watch this video, see what happens, and see if you learn something. I guarantee you'll take something away from it. So, but what are we going to talk about tonight, Casey?
Well, I think we have a few different subjects, Justin. I don't know that we're going to go the full hour tonight. Maybe not. But I believe we're going to talk about the incident in Baltimore where the suspect pretended to draw a weapon and police shot and killed him for his troubles. We're going to talk about I don't know about the mass shooting in Oregon, but certainly the fact that there was another one and the typical drama that follows that. And the Glock 43 versus the Shield. As you know, I've recently picked up a Glock 43 just for this, and I think that will be an interesting discussion when we get to it.
Alrighty. Well, let's start with this suspect. What was that expression, playing stupid games, get a stupid prize? I think that's kind of what holds true here.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I think that is a very accurate and fair assessment of what occurred there. Let's roll the video.
All right, for our audio listeners, you will hear the audio. If you're just listening to the audio, we'd encourage you to scroll down, hit that YouTube link, and we'll have this full video and the entire podcast on YouTube as well.
Baltimore County Police released surveillance video of the officer-involved shooting that killed an unarmed young man. Police say the video shows the suspect pretending to draw a weapon. WOTG is live at police headquarters. Rick Ritter stays on this investigation. Rick?
Well, Vic, the NAACP has been calling for this video to be released. Police say they're doing just that to defend this officer's actions, and we want to warn you, some of this video is extremely graphic. 48 hours later, Baltimore County Police release intense surveillance video from an officer-involved shooting that left a 19-year-old dead.
My police officer.
We'll roll that back.
1 second to make a life or death decision.
The video was captured Wednesday evening by surveillance.
So here we have, the officers very
business in
clearly giving
Reisterstown.
commands,
Keith
telling the
McLeod of
guy
Washington,
to
D.C.
stop,
tried passing a fake prescription at a pharmacy
don't
on
come any
Main Street.
closer,
Officers were
etc.
called to the scene and approached him
And
in
the guy
parking
pulls
lot.
a,
Police say the
in
19-year-old
essence,
suspect
says, I'm going
led
to kill
them on a
you,
foot
and reaches back like he's got a pistol and pulls it out and points his finger, his finger gun at the police officer and gets shot. I don't. It is what it is, I think.
Yeah, and it's important to note here, we're going to play this last little 50 seconds to a minute of this interview and listen to some of the stuff that the reporter, the eyewitnesses, and the officer said were going on before and during this, since you don't have the audio on the surveillance camera. So listen in here to some other things to kind of round out the picture of what was really going on in that parking lot or alleyway.
across the street to behind this group of businesses, a dead-end alley, and started screaming at the officer and making threats. Witnesses tell police the officer tried pleading with the suspect.
The suspect, on the other hand, according to the witnesses and others, repeatedly used profanities, screamed and yelled at the officer, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you."
Police say video shows the suspect aggressively approaching the lone officer as if he had a weapon, and that he then reaches around his back, whips out his hand, and points it at the officer, which ends with the officer firing 3 shots at the suspect.
It seemed like they were working on him very hard, trying to revive him.
I also like how it ends right there with that bystander, that after all that happened, they were still immediately went to CPR to try to save the, well, I'm not going to say any bad words about the kid, try to save the guy after they shot him. So I just don't know how that plays out any other way. I mean,
well, when we look at the totality of the circumstances there, so officers respond to a guy who is trying to pass a forged script. So apparently he's into pills or whatever. Tries to forge or pass a forged script. Officers get called to the location. Foot chase ensues. The kid, I don't mean he's a kid. The suspect leads him on a foot chase. At some point, turns around, comes back, and begins yelling at the officer, "I'm going to kill you." Puts his hand behind his back, and in fact, in the video, you notice it's actually in his pants. Puts his hand in his pants, as if or as though he's reaching for a weapon, is telling the officer, "I'm going to kill you." The officer standing there in full uniform at gunpoint, "Hey, dude, knock it off, get back, get back, get back." And then the guy reaches around, and at that point, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he's going to try to kill you. I don't believe that that's unreasonable. It is unfortunate. I feel horrible for the police officer involved in this. But I don't know that you have a whole lot of other choice. At that split-second moment, it is kill or be killed. And you know what? I'm going to get plenty of hate mail because I'm a freedom-hating police backer, according to some. And I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, I'm not getting killed over a crackhead if I can at all avoid it. So...
And you don't have the hindsight. You don't know the story. I mean, how many times, let's look at all the other big shootings. All of them, when you look at the facts, I think Michael Brown was buying Skittles or something. I'm sorry. Michael Brown was buying Black and Mild.
Michael Brown didn't buy anything. Michael Brown
stole it.
Stole.
He was stealing
cigars. You're thinking of Trayvon Martin with the What was it? Skittles or M&Ms in an iced tea or something?
He was trying to make it's a drink that they mix with alcohol or something. But anyways, both these guys, petty criminals, and they meet resistance, and it escalates to deadly use of force. It's almost like this is a systemic issue that I obviously can't support this with any facts, but it seems like we've had this come to roost, this thing where we raise these kids to think they're all special, they all get a trophy, we can't spank them, we can't do this, we can't do that, and then they grow up and they go their own route until they meet Johnny Law, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, there's some things you can't do. And if you push the issue, someone is going to spank you. Only difference is it's not a spanking, it's a whooping. It's being fought into cuffs, or ultimately it is lethal force being applied to you, or a taser, or everything in between. I can't back that up. It's just kind of a me thinks thing that, and maybe it's not really getting all that much worse statistically. I think our deaths have been trending down and kind of steady as far as officer deaths and stuff like that. But I don't know. It just kind of makes me think that people aren't used to being held accountable and facing that ultimate reality that someone will make them, lawfully, of course. And I don't know. Maybe that's just pulling it out of the air, and maybe I'm totally full of it. But what do you think? Is it systemic? Is it just we have video, we know about it more, or is it really a growing problem?
Well, there we go again. I don't honestly know. I think it is part of that. It is partly systemic in that, for whatever reason, accountability is a thing of the past for the most part, it seems. We have all these programs to make people successful. We have all these programs to give people a chance to get ahead, and they still choose to do stupid things. I don't know why that is. If I knew why that was, I would probably be able to figure out how to fix it, and I wouldn't have to be doing this. I'd make a lot of money. But I can't. So ultimately, I believe what it comes down to is, yeah, things are on video now. We, as a society, seem to be making an issue more and more of these incidents, which is fine. I think every time that a law enforcement officer uses deadly force, and unfortunately, based upon the actions of a citizen, is forced to kill them, I think that that's something that should have a lot of scrutiny. The scrutiny isn't the issue. The issue is that it's not fact-based scrutiny. It's, little Johnny this was going to be little Johnny's last robbery. He wasn't going to do that again. Or little Timmy wasn't going to beat me anymore. Or whatever. It's always, well, this is going to be the last one. Or he would never do that. Well, clearly he did. He's on video that he did that. So I think the problem is that it's not fact-based. It is feeling-based. And a host of issues in this country are based on the feels. The same thing we're going to talk about next is a feels problem. It's not a fact problem. It's a feels problem. And I don't know how to combat that other than to say, there for the grace of God go I, and anytime you want to come ride, let me know. I don't know what else to say. It is a sad state of affairs. It's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, we don't pay cops enough to die. You certainly don't pay me enough to die, especially over something stupid. I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that nobody else does. But by the same time, in that situation, I watch that video, I feel terrible for that officer, because I know in that moment, the only thing he was thinking is, this is it. One way or the other, this is all fixing to be over in just a minute. And that's sad. It's sad that it's come to that, and it's sad that people don't recognize the real world that we live in. It sounds really nice, and it's a great soundbite, and it briefs really well that, the police are barbaric, or there's such brutality. The facts don't bear that out. The facts don't bear that out. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. I don't care. The facts are the facts. Mm-hmm. Yep, sure. There's probably, just like anything else, 5% maybe that are absolutely no good and should be gone. And believe me when I tell you, it is my sincerest hope that those folks go to jail. I'd rather we bury them under the jail. But the fact of the matter is that the other 95, 98% certainly are not in that category. But just like everything else, God forbid that we a quote-unquote profile based on race or religion or any number of factors. Because, we don't want to paint with broad strokes. We don't want to paint with a broad brush. We want to make it each individual and this, that, and the other. And I agree. The problem is, in reverse, there's no such courtesy. Everybody gets angry. Why is nobody standing up that these cops are doing these bad things? Well, rest assured that when bad cops do bad things, good cops, even mediocre cops, stand up and say, hey, you're doing bad things. You need to knock that off. Believe me. The first case I worked as a detective, I got a perp walk with a cop. So I really am not in the mood to listen to that we don't police our own, because in fact we do.
Yeah. And I think to pull it off of the cop talk, pro cop, whatever thing that somebody might say we're going down that road, there's a lot to be learned for anybody that's in a violent encounter. Kind of what you said, I think the root of it is that you talked about and touched on is a lot of people, good guys and bad guys alike, people in general, get their education, their training, and their basis of how they look at these instances on the media and on especially movies. They see this and say, well, he could see there's no gun. Why'd he shoot him? Why didn't he just tase him? Or he shot him and he never raised his gun. Or all these things that they don't realize if they would take literally 4 hours of force on force, if they would take one study online with something of some kind of mediocre subject matter expert and study some of the realities of these violent encounters and interactions, they would totally see, oh, holy crap, this is not what I thought it was. This isn't the OK Corral where we all start at the same time when we draw and shoot. And the realities of these violent encounters and gunfighting are very different than what they think. They don't have any basis in reality, any basis, in physics. How can they have an accurate opinion or accurate vision of what's going on here when they are so far off? So a lot of it's not really their fault, but it is. It is, but it isn't. They need to seek out those facts.
Well, I don't critique a brain surgeon. You know why I don't critique a brain surgeon? Because I don't know anything about brain surgery. I mean, I've watched a lot of stuff on YouTube. I've watched ER. I've watched House MD. I don't know anything about brain surgery. I couldn't tell you the first thing about lupus. It. Yeah, it's I don't know. And there's a lot of professions where people think they know how to do your job. Be it an attorney, be it a police, be it any number of things. But the fact of the matter is, I'm at McDonald's. I don't go back there and tell them how to cook my Big Mac. You know why? Because I don't know how to do that. So I give them that benefit of the doubt. If it's not right, I say something, they correct it, they move on. That's just the way things are done. But I digress. It is an interesting phenomenon, and I don't know if it's worse today, Justin, or not than back in the day. Because, frankly, we talk about quote-unquote brutality today. You know, the 40s, 50s, 60s, even into the 70s, it was a different world. It was a different world for police, and it was a different world for citizens.
Mm-hmm.
It was, some say, especially the old heads, they say it was a more dangerous time to be the police. The whole ambush on cops and things like that, that's nothing new. So, I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do also with the media coverage. And I look at the media like this. I like the news just like anybody else does. I like to find out what the weather's going to be. How did the Twins do? How did the Predators do? and how did my local people vote on whatever topic or issue that I care about. But at the end of the day, media is in the business of selling stories. They're in the business of getting advertisers.
Getting eyeballs.
So I think, and I don't particularly see them as adversarial. I just think they're going to say or spin things the way they're going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the whole Michael Brown incident. We know today that hands up, don't shoot, or hands up, don't shoot is a falsehood. We know that today for fact. However, that narrative is still pressed forward. And that narrative came from the media day one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to be sure. I do like to see citizen involvement in these things because I think that that's important also. Like I said, I have no issues with oversight. I have no problem with cameras. In fact, we've watched cameras have become a real big thing since the Michael Brown incident. And a lot of agencies strictly on the Michael Brown incident have gone to fielding body cams. They've gone to fielding dash cams. They've gone to doing these things. And so we've made, right, wrong, or indifferent, a change in the way we do business. At the end of the day, the camera, while I don't particularly believe a camera's the end-all, be-all, the camera is not showing what everybody alleged it would show. The camera's actually showing 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, the cop is 100% in the right.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it bad that these things are ongoing? I don't know that it's so good. I could really do without the protests and things that are really, if we're getting right down to it, are nothing more than an excuse to loot.
Mm-hmm.
But the changes that have come out of it, I don't think it's so bad. I think at the end of the day, we're getting to be where if it's not on video, it didn't happen, and that's unfortunate. That is unfortunate.
That's what starts to bother me, though.
Yeah,
and
but
go ahead.
Well, I mean, what do you do?
Well, I mean,
what do you do?
It's like DWIs. We started using dash cams and all that. What happened? It wasn't that the police officers were rampant and victimizing the public. Your DWI conviction rate went through the roof to like 99%. Because now you had this evidence, this dude stumbling and falling out of his car drunk.
Right.
The same thing is going to happen with more cameras. It's going to result in more convictions. It's going to be an additional piece of evidence that will show, like you said, 99% of the time that, yeah, this guy was being an asshole, saying, I'm going to kill you, drunk, high, fighting the whole time. The officer did everything he could trying to resolve the situation or gain control. Being that I work in corrections, I see this a lot. These people come in, they're drunk, high, stoned, having a mental breakdown, and the fact that the stuff we deal with for days, for hours on end, of these people at their absolute rock bottom, absolute highest, worst, violent, most violent, I mean, and people they don't see that side. And oftentimes until, more advance of video and stuff, they never did see it. They had no idea what really happened. Oh, look at him. They beat him up. He's all black and blue and all that. Okay. You do realize he covered himself with his own feces, punched through a cell glass window, and now we have to go in there, hold him down, strap him to a chair, and try to fight him so that he doesn't bleed to death, covered in his own feces and urine. And the sad thing is, I'm not making that up. Those two things have actually happened literally this week to me at work. So, is a guy just an upstanding citizen outside to his girlfriend and family and all that? I don't know if he is or not. I don't get to see that side. Most of the time, I don't even know why they're in there. I don't worry about that. I can't keep up with hundreds and hundreds of people. I deal with the way they're acting right in front of me now. Hey, here's your tray. Okay. Then there's problems ensue. I don't care if he's a rapist or a child molester or a robber or just smoked some dope. ideal. The here and now, how's he acting? What are they doing or what are they not doing? So I think it's, as with most of these things, it's a lack of perspective or a lack of information on what really happens. I digress.
I think the other issue is mental health is a major issue.
Yes.
And we've closed all of these, what do you call them, the asylums or state hospitals, where there's so many that have been closed, and it becomes a law enforcement issue, because what do? These guys are, on occasion, they're out there acting a fool, acting crazy. What do? Just let them go? Okay. I'm good with either way. I don't care. I'm going to go to my home. It doesn't matter to me. But the citizens we serve don't want to have to deal with that. So if they haven't committed a crime, they're just acting crazy, we take them to the mental hospital, or to the hospital, and see if they need mental health assistance from professionals. If they've committed a crime, where do criminals go? People who've committed a crime, if they go in custody, they go to jail. I don't know that that's really the best place for a person with mental issues. But how do you differentiate that at the moment?
It's tough.
At some point, if you don't want us to do that, okay. I'm okay with that. But you don't get to bitch too. I mean, there's no, it's unfortunate, but it's a difficult situation. And ultimately, folks jump to conclusions. They don't wait for the facts to come out. And unfortunately, here we are with the, for lack of a better term, us versus them thing. And it's unfortunate.
I hope the pendulum will swing back a little bit. Obviously,
I don't think it will in our career.
Well, I think about the mental health. I think the mental health thing is becoming a big enough issue now that they're going to try to at least come back a little bit on it, because we have people that, I mean, it gets to the point you stop charging them because you just can't do it anymore. They're fighting with people every single day or once a month, and it's just a vicious cycle. You lock them down, and then they just get stuck in their own psychosis, and they don't get any better. So I'm hoping locally there's been some talk about a council put together, and they're going to try to come up with a diversionary program for some of our people, and I hope they do. But
what do you do? What do you do when they don't take their medicine?
Well, they're right back.
Right? Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's awful.
A lot of times, what happens, and there's plenty of folks I'm sure in the audience who know, or have family members rather, that are dealing with mental health issues, and it's a scary thing. And how do you force somebody to take their meds? Because what happens is people, they have these episodes or whatever, and they go and they start taking their meds, and they start feeling good, and the meds are doing their job. It's maintaining balance with whatever. Again, I'm a policeman, not a doctor, but it maintains balance with the chemicals in the brain, and things are going good, and things are getting better. And now they feel like, oh, well, hell, I'm cured. I don't need to take these anymore. So they don't take them anymore. And, 2, 4, 6 weeks later, they're back on a rampage. Yep. But what do you do there? How do you fix that? I don't know.
Yeah, I wish I had the solution. It's tough because I've seen that literally take place over and over again. Person comes in, they get on meds either by force or coercion or willingly, then they're good to go, they're released, or they get sent to the state hospital, they get on their meds, they get balanced out, they let them out, we see them in 6 months. We send them to the state hospital, which is a process to get up. I mean, they have very limited space. They have to be really bad to get them set there. Once again, get them regulated. They have to let them out once they're on the level, and the cycle repeats itself over and over again. So,
it's crazy, man.
Yeah. Trying to move on here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We
That's
got
okay.
Tangent, but
we both did.
But the mental health thing is going to flow right into the next one.
Well, speaking of another individual with some mental health issues, we had another mass shooting, active shooter, whatever you want to call these guys, active murderer, in it would be Oregon. As this show is for our listeners to learn more, to break out of those. I mean, we have to admit that even ourselves, we're victims to basing our reality on the media or movies or whatever there, and we have to learn, oh, wait, that's not how it really is. Some of those lessons we learned the hard way, others we got from friends or whatever, or training. If we look at our viewers in the last week or so, they're probably fighting a lot of drama and a lot of, quote, facts, a lot of studies, and a lot of arguments, probably on Facebook. I can't wait for the dislike button. Give us that dislike button, please. We need it so bad. Mark Zuckerberg. Supposedly it's in the works. That's the reason I brought that up. I think we need to go over a few things to try to help our listeners. Of course, we're going to end with, I don't really care what the statistics are, but the fact that the statistics, the most of the ones I'm looking at, are not clear-cut. They're misrepresented, inflated, or just flat wrong. So I thought we'd touch on that a little bit to try to empower our viewers and listeners to maybe feel a little bit better about what's going on, or not feel quite so overwhelmed by the gun grabbers and Democrats as a general rule that are just blowing up their Facebook feeds, vilifying them and myself and Casey and all these other pro-gun rights, Second Amendment types. So what do you want to say about it, Casey?
I'll let you go over the numbers.
Of course.
Ultimately, here's my thing. Don't give a shit what the numbers say. Don't care. Doesn't matter. Second Amendment says. It's really the only thing that matters. At the end of the day, they want to take the guns. There's a process for that. And they need to follow that process. The numbers that they use are so skewed. And I can skew any statistic to go any way I want it to, just so we're all tracking. None of that matters. The law of the land is the Second Amendment. So if they don't like it, while I appreciate their position, don't agree with it, and not only welcome but encourage them to come get it. It's not being flip. It's not being mean. It just is what it is. So they throw these numbers around. I saw one that said the number of American deaths caused by terrorism versus gun violence from 2001 to 2013. Gun deaths were 406,494, and terrorism deaths were 3,380. Now, just so we understand where the 406,000 comes from, if a bad guy shoots a bad guy, that's one. If the police or citizen uses lawful deadly force with a gun, that's one. If somebody offs themselves with a gun, commits suicide, that's one. So I don't believe we have a true and accurate accounting of what actually is a gun death. I think that's a major issue.
Also, the terminology. It says gun violence. They're very, very precise with their terminology. They imply gun violence. You don't think about someone shooting themselves. You don't think about someone defending themselves from a rape, or someone defending their store from a robber. You don't think of all these hosts of other things, but if you look at the fine print, and I'm quoting, the gun fatalities cover all manners of death, including homicides, accidents, and suicide. Anytime a bullet has left a weapon, a firearm, and caused a death, they count it, which is not gun violence. It's gun deaths. I mean, that's like saying blunt force head trauma kills 500,000 people. Well, it's kind of different if he fell off a ladder by an accident or someone bashed his head in with a hammer. Those are two different things. So you couldn't say violent deaths, 1 million people killed by violent deaths, and then accidents, people falling off. I mean, more people die from falling accidents than actual guns. The guns aren't even in the top 10 on the CDC. Except suicide, but that doesn't mean it's all suicides, not just gun suicides. And the big thing with the statistics, folks, is look at the fine print. You'll find all host of issues. For instance, just to give some rough ones, 400,000, you could probably take away at least 100,000 of those are going to be suicides, probably more. I've seen upwards of 100 to 150, 200. It varies. Accidents will be probably 10,000 over that 12-year period. After you start taking all those issues out, the actual gun violence used unjustified, unrighteously, a weapon to cause harm, a bad person causing harm, you get down probably very near that number on the lower portion, 3,000. And here's the fun part. This is the really fun part. Where's all this happening? They say in America, in America. No, it's not happening in America. It's happening in about a dozen neighborhoods. And I, once again, listen to the very specific semantics I use here. Neighborhoods, not even cities, but specific areas of specific cities account for 90 to 99% of these statistics. For instance, if you're in northern Chicago, you're about as safe as you are just about anywhere in the United States. If you go to southern part of Chicago and one of those key neighborhoods, people are dying almost every day. If you take out those 12, literally dozen neighborhoods in the United States, which are in Chicago, now it escapes me, St. Louis, I'm sorry, I've lost the cities, I've lost them now. If you take those out, our gun violence is actually less than most of the places in the rest of the world. There's cities, if you actually break down the statistics across the rest of the world, the United States is very, very low. It's down into the low 100s as far as these incidents go. And that's including those handful of cities that jack our statistics way through the roof. If you take those out and you actually break it down by city across the world, we're down way, way, way down into the 300, 400, 500 lowest as far as those kind of violent crimes. Of course, Chicago is up there, like number 99 out of all the cities. I mean, those are all high. So it's just not an accurate representation of what's going on. Here's some other statistics for you. CDC leading cause of death is heart disease and cancer. That's the leading cause of death. Accidents, unintended injuries, 130,000. I mean, and this is going to be per year. Diabetes, Alzheimer's, and suicides. Suicides alone in 1 year, 41,000 suicides. Just 1 year. So, I don't... let's see here. What else? One thing I was going to show. Oh, yes. One statistic that comes out, you're probably going to hear this, and I think it's probably just as bad the other way. A scientist, I'm not sure exactly which discipline he is. His name is Kleck, K-L-E-C-K. He estimated that Americans use guns for protections from criminals more than 2.5 million times annually. They basically use the U.S. Department of Justice victimization surveys to show the use of guns. So obviously, I want to respect the guy, and he probably was being fair with 2.5 million. But even if he was only half right, that's still 1 million times a year that weapons are used to defend them. And this leads me to where I'll finally kind of stop with these statistics talk and send it back to you, Casey. But I've heard people say things like, a good guy with a gun has never stopped an active shooter. Well, that's not correct. There's actually now starting to be some more people that are putting up some statistics to prove that. But once again, it's all in the semantics. Let's say you call an active shooter someone that kills 4 or more people. Well, if he's shot after he shoots 1 or 2 people by a quote good guy with a gun, then he's not considered an active shooter or a mass shooter or what you want to call him. So their statement is actually correct, but yet it's not. It's back to that quote, gun violence, 400,000. it's sad that we have to break this down, and unfortunately, only a few parts of the media are actually drilling down to these numbers to say, hey, bullshit. You've thrown in suicides. You've thrown in this. You've thrown in that. You're misrepresenting and inflating your numbers. So don't get discouraged. The numbers are on our side. The statistics are inflated. It's not as bad as they make it seem. And if you'll just drill down a little bit deeper into these things, most of it does not pass a few extra minutes of scrutiny or reading the entire article or following the source or looking at the fine print. But the most important thing, and Casey and I agree on this more than anything, is I don't care what the statistics are. I don't care if I'm going to school and I'm of age, 18, 21, whichever you want to argue that, it's a separate argument, and there's a school shooting every single day. You bet you I want my own gun to protect myself, or if it's only happened once a year. I don't care. That Smith & Wesson Shield is my personal protection to protect myself. That's my right by the virtue of me being made in the image of God, if that's your belief, or being the highest level life form that's formed through many millions of years of evolution. I have a right to live and survive and defend myself. It's the same way the First Amendment, they never thought about the internet or Facebook. They didn't think about anything but paper and talking. Well, you know what? I can get on Facebook and share my information on the internet. There's no reason that the Second Amendment doesn't evolve from muskets to a Smith & Wesson Shield. So, the statistics, I don't care. I really don't, but most of them are bullshit. And now I'll take a breath and let Casey rescue me.
Well, no, I get it. At the end of the day, like I said, don't care really what the statistics say. Ultimately, whether it's an active shooter or having to use your weapon in self-defense, the statistics are that that's not very likely to ever have to happen to you.
Right.
Which is a good thing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be prepared, but statistically, it's not going to happen to you. So that's another statistic that you could think about. It is what it is. I do believe that there is an agenda from somebody, be it the left or however you want to look at it, to disarm the population. Disarmed population is very easy to control. Do I think there's some grand conspiracy? No. I think that you have a bunch of scaredy cats who are afraid of their own shadow and think that only the government should have guns. As a guy who works for the government, I totally disagree. And I'm prepared to take my last breath for that. So, at the end of the day, all of these things, statistically, are very unlikely to happen to you or to me or to anybody. If they do, be prepared. And if and when that day comes, well, we handle those things and move forward. The best thing I can say is be trained, be prepared for when those things do happen. And that way you rise to your level of training and not your level of hope. That's kind of the big takeaway there. Why do they want to take guns away and control people? I don't know. I can't say or speak to their mindset on that. But I think there is a bit of a narrative that is being pushed forward to hopefully lead to that eventuality for some folks. And as I said, there's a way that they can do that. 100% legal. They have to find somebody to push a bill forward to amend the Constitution of the United States. They have to have, I believe it's 2/3 majority vote of that. And then once they've done that, they still haven't changed the law. They've just said that, yes, we can hold ratification to change things. And then they have to get, I believe, another 2/3 of the states to agree to that. So in all likelihood, it's a long shot. Is it possible? Certainly. Is it likely? Not very. So let them babble on. Let them Chicken Little and the sky is falling. You continue to be prepared and train, carry your gun, and everything will be okay. Odds are very good you're never going to need to use it in anger. But if you do, you'll be prepared. And I don't think there's anything else you can do other than that. You're not going to change their minds. I don't. Just like they're not going to change your mind, you're not going to change their mind. And that's okay. That's the beauty of America. We can agree to disagree. But the fact of the matter is, I have a constitutional right to my peace. And until such time as that changes, I not only welcome, but I encourage the challenge. So that's kind of my 2 cents there.
Well, let's talk about 2 pieces then. The time has come for us to decide. It's 2 popular single-stack 9mm. The Glock,
Dun, dun, dun.
the Glock 43 versus the Shield. One gun to rule them all. Oh, boy. This has been a tough one. I'll tell you. And it's one of those things, I have to be honest, if one came out before the other, would I feel differently? And that's a hard one to say, honestly and objectively. But we'll start off with some facts, and then we'll go on to some more about some feel.
Some feels, some subjectivity.
All right. Here's the big thing. Solely on value and price is going to go to the Shield. And this is also why I recommend the Shield very much to people because, for instance, as you can see here, the stock Glock 43 ranges about $358 to $450. Retail, I think MSRP is like $529.
That's crazy, by the way.
Yeah. You can realistically find it in mid 400s. I put $358 there because that's if you get a discount through either being a Glock member or some other member or a law enforcement discount, it goes down to mid to upper 300s. And then the Shield likewise retails for $450, $449, and you can find them for maybe just over $3, but all day long you can find them at $399. So at the stock basic price, on the Glock you get plastic's crappy sights, can't stand them, and you get 2 6-round magazine. One is extended for feel, but not for rounds. On the Shield you get metal 3-dot sights and a 7-round and an 8-round extended magazine, and if you're so inclined, there is an option for a safety, which, once again, if you haven't already heard it, we don't care about the safety. Casey doesn't care. I don't care. Have a safety, don't have a safety, whatever. It's a non-issue. It doesn't get in the way. If you're just against it, don't get one. Not a big deal. But it is an option if that's one thing you have to have.
And we should make a quick note here that the safety version of the Shield came out prior to the no safety version.
Right.
So you'll understand that Justin and I's guns have safeties because at the time there was no other option. There was no safetyless, for lack of a better term, option. That safety is so... And the reason we're kind of discussing this is there was a discussion on Facebook a little while back, and I may have, I don't know, been an a-hole. Sorry, I do that. About safety and this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, I don't care if it's got a safety or not. Whatever it is, train with it the way you want to use it. I don't know, and again, small sampling of a few people. I don't know anybody who's had an issue with that safety coming on accidentally or going off accidentally. It's really as far as safety goes, it's pretty small. I'm not in love with it for carrying it with the safety on and having to flick it off. It's just not that big. But because it's not that big, it also doesn't seem to have the major issues of just clicking on and on itself, and it is a pretty positive purchase both ways. So just so we're all tracking, when the Shield first came out, the only way you could get it was with a safety. They have since listened to the market and have a model without a safety lever.
And I've never heard of anyone having problems with it. for that matter, I don't think I've heard of maybe a handful of people that actually use the safety. Most of them just leave it off. So, non-issue, but some people, and I get it. For the kind of clientele that they're marketing this to, some person that's going to buy this gun, load it up, and throw it in their purse loose, okay, maybe a safety was a good idea. But anyways, it's a non-issue. If you want it, you got it, whatever. Now, so right now we're looking at a minimum, at the extremes, if you lucked out and got a law enforcement discounted Glock 43 and your buddy paid full price for it, you're looking at a difference of about $100 if you shoot down the middle, $39 to $130, depending on, what you get it for. But let's do a fair comparison. Now, if you equip them equally, so you're going to have the shield on the side in its stock form, metal sights, a 7-round mag, 8-round mag. And on the left, you're going to upgrade just to metal sights, not night sights, about $50. You're going to upgrade both the magazines so they're an equivalent 7-round and 8-round capacity. You're now looking at a price difference of over $150. Easy, all day long. Realistically, upwards of about a $200 difference between the guns to get them basically on level with each other with capacity and metal sights. That to me is probably the biggest difference and the biggest issues between these two guns is that right there. Just the dollar amount you're paying to get the Glock. What do you think, Casey?
I agree. I think that the Shield value-wise, if we're going straight on cost and we look at the value, I think the Shield wins. I really do, because the difference in cost is pretty significant. Maybe not at initial buy-in, but by the time I got the Glock set up the way I wanted it with the night sights and the Terran Tactical base plates, it was significantly more expensive than the Shield ever thought about being. I could have bought, 2 or 3 or 4 mags for that price, or a couple mags and a couple boxes of ammo. I think that it is a significant difference, and so significant that, and to me, at the end of the day, they both shoot about the same. I kind of prefer the Shield, but maybe we're not there yet. But cost, I'm not a cost shopper most of the time. I am a value shopper, so I don't mind paying more for better value, as you've heard me speak over the last however long. I think the Shield wins. I mean, it's not perfect, certainly, but neither is the Glock. In fact, I shoot the Shield better because I don't have my trigger finger's not running into the rest of my hand when I'm shooting it like it does with the Glock. I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but I do think going in with eyes wide open on both of them that's something to be considered. And I think the Glock's actually just a smidge bigger. Not much, but just a little bit.
Yeah, in one way and another way not. But the thing is, there's a lot of people out there, whether you want to or not, they're going to be like, well, I don't want to spend so much X amount of dollars. They set this price, this little shelf. I can't go that high. So that's the one good thing about the Shield is it hits that price point right about $350 that most people should be able to reasonably attain, or at least save up to hit, so they are sure to get a quality firearm in a quality caliber that's reliable and good value. I'm like you, the Glock 43 is not unobtainable in this price difference. But we're talking about real money. We're talking about maybe wait 2 or 3 more months, setting money aside to buy something.
Well, looky here. For that price, I can get a full-size gun.
Yeah. True.
And to me, this small pistol is really a niche gun. I carry a full-size gun every day. Far more often, I carry the full-size gun than I ever do the small gun. So,
I'm about half and half.
For me, what'd you say? You're half and half?
Yeah. Well, we have different schedules, but basically, on duty I'm full-size, off duty I'm the Shield. So I basically...
You're not carrying the 19 anymore, huh?
No, I actually sold my 19.
Dude, what? See, this is what happens, folks. I don't talk to this guy for a little while. What? You got rid of the 19?
Yeah, I'm carrying the, well, unfortunately, it's a 22. It's a 40. I prefer a 17, but I carry the 22 for work, and then when I'm not at work, it's the Shield. That's basically where I bounce back and forth from now.
I did not know that you'd gotten rid of your 19 because you were a big 19 lover. I'm not a fan of that size gun. Just the way for my hand, where the hump is, it jacks me up. Like the full size gun feels great in my hand. Mm-hmm. The little one, the tiny ones feel good in my hand. The two mid-sized guns, the subcompact and the compact, where the hump is, maybe I got, retard hands or something. I don't know, but it just doesn't. Where the hump is different, and I don't like it.
Well, that's the conclusion I came to. Not too long ago, I had all three, 26, 19, and a 22. So I spent a lot of time going between the three, and I kind of came to the same conclusion you did. If I'm really worried about concealing something, I'll just knock it down to the 26. It just conceals better. I don't care what it is. It's the smallest gun. It does. And if I'm not worried about concealing or printing so much, I'll step it up to the 22 or 17, the full size. So it just got to the point that the 19 didn't have a place anymore. So, and I used to carry the 26 religiously, but now I've went to the Shield, and now that I carry a spare magazine with the Shield, I feel a little bit better with it, with the 16 rounds, 2 magazines for a little bit of redundancy there, and versus the Glock 26, which for me it's harder to carry a spare magazine because the magazine's twice the thickness. So, and it's heavier too. So for me, this is kind of where I've settled in recently, is the Shield with a spare magazine. But the other thing, one thing I'll point out here too with this $100, which is, I bring this up because this is what I've done to mine, is the price difference, easily $100. You can either upgrade the trigger or upgrade the sights. I haven't upgraded my.
Not both?
Almost both.
Okay.
Depending on how you, I think you can do it both. Now, some of those night sights will push upwards almost $100 on their own.
Yeah.
If you get full tritium all over the place, which obviously not necessary. If you just got a front tritium dot and something clean in the rear, you could probably get them both. But for my money, I really don't mind the stock Shield sights all that much. I do pretty good with them. I thought about trying some of John Proctor's Y-notch sights, the Way of the Gun sights. I have those on
Frank Proctor.
Frank Proctor, I'm sorry. Frank Proctor. Sorry, Frank. That's what I have on my 22, my full-size gun, and I'm really liking those. So I might try those on the Shield, but I haven't yet. But I do have an Apex trigger kit, the duty carry trigger, whatever it is, for the Shield, and I really like that. So before we get into feel, there's one more thing I have to bring up where I think the weights shift a little bit. If you're one of those type of people that has to have, or it's a big priority to have a weapon-mounted light, I think you're going to have to switch it over to the Glock. Currently, Streamlight's released a TLR-6, which is a tactical light with red laser, and it's about 100 lumens. It's got a button on the side that activates it. This, for my opinion, is the best thing going with a single stack tactical, quote-unquote, tactical light. I love how they say some of this stuff. It's about $100, and there's even some holster support for it right now. It's not too big, it's not too wide, and it actually, I think, is a realistic way to carry a tactical light on your everyday carry weapon. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, but that's one place I think it wins. On the Shield, however, we have Viridian, who started off with lasers, now they make lights. They have their tactical light. I put on there that it's rated in iPhone light lumens. It's kind of a joke.
Really?
They don't actually rate it in lumens, and there's a reason they don't. It's not that bright. Honestly, if you go in a dark room, it's probably about as bright as a small pinch light. It's a little brighter. It does have a real broad throw, but it's about like walking through your house with your iPhone camera light.
Which realistically, in a dark place, you can see okay with that.
True.
I mean, you're not blinding anybody with it.
No.
But for what it is.
But it doesn't have the throw quite nearly as much as the TLR with a solid 100 lumens with a decent spot down the middle. But I'm just saying that buyer beware. They're very different. The different design lights, very different. The one thing the Viridian does have, talking about this fancy language, they have the Enhanced Combat Readiness ECR Instant On feature. Basically,
how does that work?
Basically what it means is, they also have these for the LCP, by the way. It has a magnetically actuated switch in the body of the light, so that you can buy holsters or even make holsters that you turn the light on, and when you insert it into the holster near the magnet, it shuts the light off. The cool thing is when you draw it out, the light automatically comes on, which they kind of need because the activator switch for the light
Looks really tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny. It is tiny. That's another reason it's not really quote unquote tactical. I have handled a Glock 43 with the TLR-6 on it. I almost bought one, but I went ahead and put night sights on it first before I did the light. It's not the best. It's not like a big paddle like some of the other guns, other mounted lights are, but it's pretty easy to hit. Much more realistic than the Viridian. I've had the Viridian on an LCP, and it was very difficult to hit that light. I don't think you could do it under stress. It's just too small. But in this realm right here, this specific niche, if this is something that's very important to you, hands down the Glock is the better platform right now, this day and time. October 12th, night 2015. It's got to be the winner on that. But what we come down to is how they shoot side by side. So who's going to go first?
I think they both shoot fine.
Mm-hmm.
The feel in my hand, the Shield wins.
Mm-hmm.
They both shoot fine. They're both reliable, accurate, everything you would expect them to be. For me, I like the Shield. And to be fair, it may be because I have a hell of a lot more time on it too. So it's very comfortable to me. Not that the Glock was uncomfortable. I just like the Shield better. Where the trigger is, I don't know what it is, but I noticed when I was shooting the Glock, my trigger finger would end up over, through the trigger guard, and basically I'm touching my other hand there, and so I didn't like that. But other than that, I thought they're both good guns. You really can't go wrong with either. My personal preference at this point is the Shield. It may change at some point. I don't know what Glock is gonna come out with, and also on the beaver tail of the Glock, it's kind of got a goofy downward slope. A downward slope that kind of just was in my hand a little bit. I didn't like it. It didn't feel as good to me in my hand. So for me, that's why my money goes to the Shield.
Well, I have to echo that. I'm with you. I don't know if it's just because I've already been kind of in bed with the Shield and carried it so long, and even in the the people that are watching the video will see the difference in the two weapons. You can see the Shield has got some noticeable holster wear on it, where it's been put through the paces quite a bit. I'm with you. The Shield is slightly bigger in almost every area. I think the Glock has a slightly longer barrel, but a slightly shorter grip section. But for some reason, to me, the Shield feels better. I like the lower bore access on the Glock. It's a much cleaner sight picture. It doesn't have that tall kind of feeling. Once again, actually going out and shooting it, it's not an issue. It's a non-issue. It's a perception. It's a visual thing that, you're finding the front side. It's not a big deal. I think when you mentioned that hump, I think the reason the hump is there to keep you from getting slide bit, because the slide is so short. It just seems so low.
I would imagine that's what that's for. Or to keep the gun or to ensure that your hand doesn't go over, maybe. I don't know. I just noticed it when I was shooting it that I was like, man, that's kind of, when I get a good grip on the gun, that's a little uncomfortable. Which was really surprising to me because none of my other Glocks have that little downward hook thing.
Yeah. I think
So-
if I really had to pick, I think the Glock 43 is slightly more snappy. I can't prove it. I don't know if it's for sure or not. Maybe it's just that little tip, like you say, of the beaver tail, directing a little bit more pressure into my hand so it feels sharper. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to say the 43 is a little bit more felt recoil. I'm not sure.
It could be. I don't know.
It's hard to tell.
They're both so small. I mean, they're both so small. You feel it either way, especially shooting standard Walmart white box. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I shot some plus P through both of them, some HST stuff and some other heavier stuff. I think
Now, to be fair, I did not shoot duty ammo through it because the duty ammo I have, or the defense ammo I have, is all loaded up in the 17. So I didn't go and buy a box of duty ammo just to shoot them through both of the guns.
Oh, another thing. The barrel, I think the shield's just a little bit heavier. The barrel is actually a little bit thicker. Now, I'm not a metallurgist. I don't know if this is really an issue or not, but it is a difference. As far as shooting goes, I shoot the shield probably slightly quicker. Now, I cannot say that can be attributed just to the fact that I have an apex trigger in it. I'm sure that helps. I shot the Glock just as accurately, if not a little bit more accurately at distance, though. I just didn't do it quite as quickly. One thing I did notice about the trigger, and this is the same on the 42 and the 43. I don't know why.
It's a heavy trigger for a Glock. It's a heavy trigger.
Yeah, it's a heavier trigger, but it breaks cleaner. It's like it. Now, of course,
breaking glass. It's a nice break.
And there's minimal over travel. It's heavier, but it breaks very, very short and snap. It has a snap to it that's very crisp. That's unlike any other stock Glock I've ever felt. So I was very impressed by that. It doesn't lend itself to speed, I don't think, so well. But when you're actually setting out, like say, I took this thing out to somewhere between probably about 60 yards is about the best distance I have where I shoot most of the time. And I was digging a 2/3 scale IPSC target with both guns. The first day I shot it, I was hitting them with the 43, no problem. So that crisp trigger, I think it ends up being a net loss. The trigger's crisper, so it's heavier, but it's crisper, so you're accurate. The shield's lighter, but sloppier and spongier, but it ends up kind of being an even thing.
I carried them both out to 50 yards and was shooting, like you, the 2/3 size IPSC steel. It could be because I suck at life. I'm not going to say that that's not a huge possibility, but with those small guns, I have a hard time hitting at that distance. It's just not consistent. So 25 and in, not an issue. Back to the 50, it's again, I'm certain that is a Casey error and not a gun error. But I know at 50 I can ring it all day with a full size gun. So that was one thing I noticed. But I did suck consistently. So there is that. I do also think that if we're going on triggers and triggers alone, the Glock wins all day. Now I don't have the Apex stuff in my shield, so I can't speak to that. But the Glock 43 triggers is pretty nice if we're being honest.
Crisp, definitely crisp. And I'm not saying they're 50-yard guns. The only point I'm making is pushing them out that far, there wasn't a definitive winner between the two. It really wasn't. I shot them both. I think on the day I shot them out that distance, I think I got a few more hits with the 43, believe it or not. And that's probably me taking my time since it's a new gun and not having some bad habits. But another thing that they are equally good and bad at, and Casey already kind of alluded to this, it's real easy to suck with these guns. They're small and light. Most of my full-size gun, even maybe my Glock 26, all those guns, when I start pushing them too far, jerking the trigger a little bit, I typically get feedback. I can track the sights a little bit better, and I can kind of feel myself hitting the limits of what I'm trying to do. For some reason, this is subjective, this is just me, with these small guns, I throw shots, and I literally can't tell the difference between why that shot was off and the one before it was on. I have to really focus. I'm trying to get down to is you have to focus more on the fundamentals, I think, with these smaller guns, these smaller, lighter guns. That's something that Justin has to do, versus I can drive some of those bigger guns a lot harder and not have the effects downrange that I do with these guns. So, but they were both equal as far as that. I could push it to the point I started missing, and it was basically the same. And I think that's just me in a small gun that is playing out in that.
Yeah, so it sounds like my money goes to the Shield. Sounds like your money goes to the Shield.
Yep.
That's our personal winners. But the Glock 43 is no slouch. And if you choose the Glock 43, I don't think you're in any way, shape, or form at a disadvantage. Can we agree on that, I think?
Yeah. The only thing is the magazine capacity, and I don't know why it's an issue. Because it really shouldn't be.
Let's stop. If you really gave a damn about magazine capacity, you'd carry a full-size gun. Shut your mouth.
You beat me to it.
I mean, at the end, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's valid. That's valid. But it's still easier to carry these little backup magazines. I mean, these small, thin, single-stack magazines. It's easier to carry a backup, I think. But there's already...
Yeah, and I still have 3 times more ammo in one big gun. Come on.
Yeah, you still win. I know. But anyways, there's already companies coming out with extensions, 1-round extensions, all the way up to 2 or 3-round extensions. But be careful. I don't think this is a big issue. Excuse me. I don't think this is a big issue. But I have heard of a few people saying that the springs might not hold up to being loaded for months and months and months and months with these extended base plates. So I've not seen or witnessed anything directly, but I know going through some of my show prep, I think I ran into one blogger, YouTuber, that he kept his magazine loaded for 6 months or something and had a malfunction, which, I mean, that could be anything. But it is something to say that there's a reason they designed it the way they did. And anytime you start pushing outside of those parameters, you run the risk of decreasing your reliability for how much of a return. And the Shield is no different for this either. You can go to the name escapes me, I think it's Mag something. You can replace this follower and replace the spring and get 1 additional round in both magazines without putting an extension on the bottom. But once again, more research, more follow-up, and there's people out there that have had some reliability issues, especially when they are carrying it every single day, and then they carry it for 6 months and then go out and shoot it, and they see issues. So be careful when you're messing with your magazines. I wouldn't mess with them on the Shield side. And the Glock, so far so good, but be skeptical and be careful. And that's about all I got to say about that. It was a tough decision. I wanted to like the 43 more. I really did. I tried, but what is it about the Shield?
I don't know. If I knew, yeah, I don't know. So that's the great debate, the G43 versus the Shield. You know how we feel about it. What do you feel about it? If you guys have had the opportunity, shoot us a message on Facebook or something like that. Let us know what you're thinking. Or you can send us an email at feedback@practicaltacticalpodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can also check us out on the website at practicaltacticalpodcast.com, where you can get access to every episode that we've ever produced. Just really quickly, Justin, before I take us out of here, have you shot any of the new Magpul Glock magazines?
No, I have not. Honestly, I have quite a collection of stock Glock magazines and a handful of, are they KCI, whatever, Korean mags that I can use and abuse and practice malfunction since the springs suck in them. I don't really have a need to purchase any at this point. So, no, I haven't even put hands on one.
Well, I went and saw our friends at ATS Tactical a couple of weeks ago and picked up 3 of them. The great little magazines for like $17 a whack, which I don't think you can go wrong for a training mag.
No.
And I was at the range the other week playing with the Glock 43, doing the 43 versus Shield test. And I have a Glock 22 that I have had forever, and it's got a KKM 40-9 conversion barrel. I shoot that all the time. One thing that I noticed and this is the first time I'd shot these magazines with this gun, I was shooting. Sometimes it would be fine. It would eject normally. Other times it would eject like right back into my face. So I thought that was an odd deal there. I think I'm going to have to take the gun apart, put it back to stock, see how it does with the factory mags and the factory 40 barrel, see how the ejection is and make sure it's not a recoil spring issue. But that's one of the things, folks, when you start getting a bunch of things that are different variables, make sure when you go into your troubleshooting mode that we don't throw out the baby with the bath water, because I really wanted to say it was the magazine or something because that was the newest introduced variable. But I also realized that I'm really crappy at changing out springs sometimes, and I'm certain that the whole gun is due for spring changes. So I'll check that out and report back. But overall, the quality of the magazine seems really nice. The construction is really nice. And I think, like I said, $16, $17. I don't think you can go wrong versus $25 for a stock Glock magazine. If you guys have had any experience with that, would love to know. Particularly if you've had experience with that in a 9-40 conversion Glock 22. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. If you had the same issues that I did, that would be good to know. It could be, like I said, anything from a recoil spring issue to we need to replace all the springs in the gun. But I did notice, or it seemed to me visually, now mind you, I don't have a, what's that? What do you use, a compass? What would you use, a compass for angle measurements on that? The angle seemed different on the Magpul versus the stock Glock, but there's a lot of things that go into that. So I'm not saying the magazine is bad. It's just one of the things I noticed. So
just an additional variable you have to account for.
Right, and you start fooling with things, and that's kind of what happens. So
well, they're definitely easier to disassemble. I can tell you that without touching one. Oh, man, Glock magazines, man. I bought one of those little red clamp things. Once again, I think I found out it from Frank Proctor. The little C-clamp thing that pinches the magazine to disassemble it. Oh, yeah. Man, that's a godsend if you actually, get your magazines
Isn't that
dirty.
hard on the magazine body, though?
It's hard on my hands trying to pinch that thing and pull it apart. I've shredded my hand once jamming a Glock tool into my hand, trying to stick it through there and pull it apart. And I mean, goodness gracious. So that alone is worth, hey, right now on their website it says $15.95. That right there is worth, if you actually...
Apparently I got took then. I got took for $1.
I thought you said these were your friends.
I know, yeah, friends like these,
But if you go out there and do some muddy, bloody kind of stuff, then this might be a worthy investment to have to clean all that stuff out of your magazines to switch over to these and do that. But I'm
certainly not prepared to make the leap. I mean, God, I've got hundreds of magazines, but I'm certainly not prepared to make the leap. But I figured $16, $17, whatever I paid for them, it was certainly fair for what they were. For 3 of them to shoot around and train a little bit with, I don't think that's a bad deal. $45, $50.
Now, have you had any issues before with that conversion barrel? Because that's something that I don't want to have to buy a 17. And actually, I've just considered about buying a full-size M&P, to be honest with you, to get a full-size 9mm, because now I don't have a full-size 9. Well, I have a Smith & Wesson SD9 or something in the safe, but I don't count that. I don't.
As you shouldn't. As you should not, my friend.
Although with the Apex trigger kit, it's really not bad. I haven't had any issues with it. It runs pretty good.
I swear to God, I'm going to come through the microphone and punch you.
But I wouldn't.
Folks, Casey does not recommend that at all. Ever. Neither does the Practical Tactical Podcast. That's some crap Justin had long before he ever met me. Probably not really, but
Actually, someone else bought it. I just inherited it. But anyways,
oh yeah, I recall.
that's all right. It is what it is. You get what you pay for. But yeah, I'm kind of facing the decision now. Do I buy a 17? Do I try to buy a conversion? And for a while there, I was trying to just buy a complete upper to swap it out. But I've heard that that's not quite. The lowers are actually not quite the same, and I haven't decided yet.
Here we go again, and we're getting off topic. We're going to be an hour and a half today, so suck it up, folks. Hope you have a good trip prepared. But so I've owned literally probably 5 M&P full-size pistols. Right. I had a 5-inch gun, and I've had 3 or 4 standard full-size guns. I do not at present own them anymore. Do what you want. I would roll with the Glock. Not that I think the Glock is better or anything like that. I mean, the other gun, they performed fine. I just didn't like them. And I know you're a Glock guy, so save yourself the ass pain. Get a Glock 17. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really. I know that's not the answer you wanted. What you really wanted me to say was go out and get that VTAC M&P, and you know what I mean. So you could do that. I did. I've done that, and I've sold.
You had
it.
one, yeah.
You know, so that's that's my suggestion. Go get a 17. I like the barrel. I don't dislike the barrel. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of people that run them full time, whatever. I don't know that I feel that comfortable with it at this point just yet. It could be a Casey issue, but it just doesn't seem to be consistent with where it hits. So, and like significant differences, like, so maybe I need to send it back. I don't know. I've had it for a couple years now and just started shooting it again heavy recently. So, you know, I don't know. I don't think they're bad. I think that at times it doesn't matter who makes the barrel. I think you're going to get some that work better than others, et cetera, et cetera. But for me right now, I roll with the stock barrel and stuff like that in a gun that I'm actually going to, you know, maybe have to gunfight with.
And manufacturers can tell you the same thing. They have variances, tolerances. That's why, you know, ones that are based on accuracy will take a run of barrels and they'll test them and they'll, you know, no-go their own, you know, parts of their own production. But I just need to get a Gen 3 17, for my opinion.
What are you waiting for? You get
the
this for like
quintessential
full
size handgun, probably arguably
what do you
the
wait?
best pistol ever made, and just keep it forever.
Dude, you can get one of those for $350 all day.
I know.
What are you doing? Get a police trade-in. Change the springs, you're good to go.
No, that's what I did to the 22 because it didn't work.
Yeah, see? It didn't work.
I had problems with the light mounted. With when I had the light mounted, first time I went out to qualify, our qualifications are about they're 50 rounds.
Yeah, you told me about that.
I had 6 malfunctions. I was very upset.
Yeah, and that's, listen, okay, here we go again, another side. The Gen 3 Glock 22 with the mounted light. I've heard of issues with that. I've never personally witnessed it. Now, I know it exists. I have no doubt that it exists. I mean, whole agencies have shit-canned the Glock 22 based on that. So I know the issue exists. The problem is I've not really ever seen one that does it, that I can be like, yeah, that's the issue. And there's no real, quote-unquote, solution.
It's like a ghost.
It's hit or miss.
You don't believe in it until you see it, and then you're like, holy, it's haunted. That's it. It doesn't work.
You know, the frame flex and the this and the that and the other. And like I said, I know it exists. I've not personally seen it. You're like literally one of 2 dudes that I know that's ever even said it happened to me. So it's interesting, but
just gotta test your stuff. You gotta put it through its paces.
Yeah. So what do you just not carry the gun with a light?
No, I still do. I replaced the recoil spring assembly and put new springs in all the magazines and new followers. Since then, I've had 1, maybe 2 malfunctions. That's it. So that seems to have resolved the issue. But I think it happens more often than people think. They just, before that, they're like, oh, you're limp wristing the gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I mean, I've shot that gun with literally my forefinger and thumb, and the gun functions. So the whole limp wristing thing is, I don't know. We're not going to get into what Glock says or doesn't say. I'm skeptical about the limp wristing problem too.
If it crops up again, I'll probably take the light off because I won't risk it. But thus far, changing out all the springs, it was an agency trade-in too. So it was actually from my agency that I got a pretty good deal on it. So my issue is the agency I am at shoots 40. 40, 40, 40. They got truckloads of 40. So if you show up to a class, you show up to whatever. If you're not shooting 40, you better bring your own ammo because they're not going to provide it. But if you shoot 40, hey, burn it up. Gas it up and go.
Have all you want. Yeah. And that's how it is at my place. You know, we issue the SIG 229R is the issue gun right now. And we're actually transitioning to the Glock 22. I know, welcome to 2015. But
at least so, is it a Gen 4 at least?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I haven't been issued one yet. I roll with my personal gun. So I'm pretty sure they are Gen 4 guns. And they're fine. You know, I had that issue with the Gen 4 when I got it. I mean, I probably had the first one in the county anyway when they came out, and that gun wasn't a good gun for me. It had some trigger issues. It would go from being, you know, a standard 5-pound trigger pull to like a 12-pound trigger pull at random. I thought that there was some issues. Maybe I didn't put it together right, this, that, or the other. But this is 4 years ago, maybe. So the gun's had several evolutions since then. And for those of you who don't know, the Glock is an ever-evolving piece of machinery. Be it
they're just very discreet about it.
Yes, they are very discreet. So, I don't know. We'll see. It's a Glock. It'll be fine. I'm not real concerned about it.
Yeah. Well, we've got lots of information out there tonight. It's been a great to sit down with you, Casey, and shoot the shit, as they say, and talk shop. It's been great to have the listeners with us again, and we've got some stuff in the works. We would like to do some more episodes. We're looking for some more feedback about what you want to hear. I'm kind of thinking maybe, I know Casey has got an EQC. I'm going to mess it up. Help me out. ECQ. I can't ever say that.
ECQC?
Oh, man. Class that he's taken. I've recently done some force-on-force stuff. Maybe we can do a episode on the realities and some gunfighting stuff, some myths, about distance and just violent encounters in general, that how the realities differ when you actually line up two people and say go shoot each other. Stuff that either doesn't play out or does play out, or some good practices. Maybe we can do an episode on that. I think that might be pretty interesting. But it's about all I got. I guess, Casey, take us out.
All right, Justin, I agree. It's been a great time. We probably need to do this more often. All right, folks, don't forget to like us on your favorite social media outlets. We are on the Twitter and the Facebook. We've got 1,575 likes on the Facebook right now. Thank you so much. Still getting to be about 2,500 downloads per show, 5,000 downloads per show. So all that is still going very good, in spite of itself, because I'm an a-hole. And we don't get to do them as much as I'd like to. But don't forget to like us on your favorite social media. If you have not and you would like to, please go to the iTunes store or wherever you found our podcast and leave us a rating and review. And basically, that's it. Don't forget to email us your feedback at practicaltacticalpodcast.com. Until next time, folks, be safe, train hard, keep your head on a swivel, and shoot straight. Take care.